Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of When I Was Your Age. I'm your host, Roland Parker. It is a joy, pleasure, and a treat to have you here with us today. Really excited about today's guest being one of my good friends that I've known for the longest. I've got with me Dr. Blair Wooten, and I'm really excited to have her on and talk with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to bring her on in. Blair, how's it going? What's up with you?
Oh, it's going good. And my cat did join, so you might see his ears or hear him
Perfect.
Participate.
Yeah, let's get him in the booth. What is the cat's name?
This is Salem.
Salem.
This is Salem. He doesn't like being held like that.
Nice. Well, I appreciate it, Salem. So Blair, well, I've got you in. I'm going to do some housekeeping real quick, and then we'll jump into it. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I've seen a lot of growth with everything going on, especially on the Instagram profile. We're currently at 323 followers, which is a big jump from the last time we recorded. So thank you for all the support. Make sure that you follow here. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Send in your questions for guests or me, the host. You can do that via DMs or our email, wiwyapod@gmail.com. All right. Well, Blair, what's up with you? What's going on in your life recently?
Well, I graduated from medical school about a month ago, and I just moved to Columbus, Ohio to start a surgery residency. So that's what's been going on.
Okay, good deal. And so we were talking a little bit before the podcast about just the moving process. What is the worst move that you've ever had?
Oh, easily the one that I did before this. I lived in like a small apartment building with maybe like 6 apartments, and I was on the top floor. So it was a 3rd floor walk up. And then I moved into a Victorian house that was built for kind of like a boarding house style. And I was in basically like the attic. So I moved from a 3rd floor walk up to a 3rd floor walk up in July while I was working 60 hours a week.
Oh, that's a terrible combo.
Yeah.
You lost me at 3rd floor walk up, and then the second one really ground it down for me. So to kind of get into the meat and potatoes a little bit more, where are you from, and where do you currently live?
So I'm originally from Huntsville, Alabama, but I just moved from Louisville, Kentucky to Columbus, Ohio. So I've been in Columbus for about a week.
Nice, good deal. It's a roll tide.
Roll tide.
We'll have to hear that. So, you touched on it a little bit, what you moved for, but could you tell us a little bit about what you do?
So, as a medical student, my primary job was to learn and to really work for myself. When we were at camp, people always told us like you get out what you put in, and being any kind of student is like that. So my job previously was kind of like very little actual responsibility, help the team out where you can, and just basically try not to get in the way, and try to glean as much as you can from your experiences. But now my job is actual responsibility, and we'll be taking care of really sick patients, we'll be doing surgery. And intern year is your first year of residency, and you're the lowest on the totem pole. So you get to do all the stuff nobody else wants to do. So it's going to be a lot of scut work and a lot of running around the hospital and writing a lot of notes. So that's what I'm anticipating. I start orientation next week, so I'll know a little bit more. But it's kind of like the first season of Grey's Anatomy. They're interns. So if you've ever seen that, that's actually like a pretty accurate representation. But what they don't show you is writing notes for like 4 to 6 hours every day.
Excellent. That sounds like my hell. Yeah, I'm not a huge note taker. Do you resonate with note taking? Some people, they kind of jam with that. That's a good way of like learning and retention for them. Does that work well for you, or do you have like some strategies for note taking?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I had a Salem hair on my face. Yeah, I just actually took this course. I had to move to Columbus a little bit early to do this certification. It's called Advanced Trauma Life Support, and it's basically like when somebody gets into a really bad accident and they come to the hospital, when they roll into the trauma bay, you need to be able to basically take care of them by yourself, or at least know how to direct people. So I had to do a 2-day course on that and pass the exams at the end. And it was weird because I saw like almost nobody taking notes. And these were
Mhm.
like, I mean, we would have like 8 to 10 lectures per day. And like nobody was taking notes. And like, but I was, I mean, like, I didn't have my iPad with me, so I was just like writing on whatever I could. I much prefer to take notes by hand. Um, and then like it really helped me study because it's like I take the notes in lecture or whatever. I go back and like what I do is I use Quizlet and I go and take my notes, turn them into Quizlet cards, and then use them to study. So by the time I'm actually like studying my Quizlet cards, I've seen this information like 2 or 3 times already. So I'm a huge note
Yeah.
taker. That's a huge way that I learn. But writing notes, like for like in the hospital, like kind of sucks because you have to be concise but also thorough. Like
Mhm.
you need
Sure.
to not write a novel. Like there are some specialties, like infectious disease is known for writing like super long notes and just including absolutely everything. It's just part of their thing.
Yeah.
But surgery is, especially like orthopedic surgery, is known for writing like the shortest notes possible. Like they just don't care. Like most people, most surgeons do not care about documentation. You kind of just, I mean, you obviously need it like just to keep track of patient day to day, to prove that you went and saw them, to like,
Mhm.
God forbid, like, something go wrong and you get sued, you absolutely need that documentation. But it's a lot of writing the same stuff over and over again, unfortunately. Like
Yeah.
I went and saw Miss Parker this morning and she's doing fine. She had 2 bowel movements since yesterday and she ate this much. And it's actually pretty tedious and boring.
Yeah. Again, you're trying to maintain what's pertinent, but and not create too much to have to read back for yourself or others like later. Um,
Right.
that makes me think of in college. I took a wilderness first responder class, and in the example and strategy that they gave was basically you would keep like duct tape on you, and you would make like a grid of like times like across the top, and then your vitals or whatever you were measuring, in like a grid of like here's how it's progressing, and then as you hand them off to the EMT or EMS, you just like slap it on them, and they're like, and you can run it down that way.
Absolutely. I mean, in a situation like that where like it really it is minute to minute. Like if you're taking care of somebody in the woods that is obviously so ill that you're taking their vitals and stuff, like you it is so helpful to have that once they get to the hospital. It is so helpful to kind of know like where did we start, where are we now. And even like one of our lecturers, she's like an ED attending and has been for probably 15 years. She said that like she just writes on people, like on these
Yeah.
patients, like Sharpie. Like if somebody's got a tourniquet on, she will just write on them what time she put it on,
Hmm.
or she'll write on the patient like um, notes about what happened to them, or whatever. Like a lot of times she's like, just if you need to document something that everybody that touches that patient needs to be aware of, just write it on them. Like
Yeah.
it's the ER, no one cares. Like just write it on them in Sharpie. Or
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
if you feel a pulse somewhere, or you don't feel a pulse somewhere and you kind of find it somewhere else that's kind of weird, mark it. Like literally write in Sharpie, like this is where I felt this person's like
Mhm.
pulse.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great thought, because like when I when I was like trying to learn, I like couldn't find it on myself, like especially like ulnar. So like Or like, wait, ulnar is the thumb side, right? Okay, yeah. So I could not.
No,
I could not. I can't see now. I can't remember. I haven't been certified for a while, so I kind of forget. Either way, one is radius, one is ulnar.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure thumb is radius. I'm like 95% sure.
Yeah, and I'll defer to you on that. But I like couldn't find basically on your wrist. I like couldn't find it there, and I could only really ever find it um, in my neck, like on myself. So that's interesting that you like note like, hey, here's where I got the good one, or here's where I observed the weird pulse. Yeah. So what piece of media are you currently enjoying? Be that a book, podcast, music, TV, combination of those things. What are you into right now?
I'm always listening to podcasts. I don't really listen to music that much. I used to think my parents were so weird when I was growing up because every time we'd get in the car, it'd be talk radio, like NPR, or even like sports radio. And I was like, this is so boring. Why do they want to listen to this? Let's just listen to music. Now I like never listen to music. Yesterday I was like, oh, maybe I'll listen to some music while I clean. And I realized that the only thing I've listened to since probably August has been Renaissance by Beyonce. The album, I have not listened to like anything else, but it's a really good album, so that's fine with me. But but I mean, I do various murder podcasts, but I actually just started watching this TV show yesterday, and I watched a ton of episodes of it. It's called The Other Two. It's on HBO. It's definitely adult, lots of cursing, mature themes, etc. Very adult, but it's very, very funny. It's produced by Lorne Michaels, so like, you know, you're probably familiar with some of his other stuff.
Okay, let me see if I can get the premise right. The figure is very like Justin Bieber-ish, and it's about the two siblings who are not teeny bopper famous.
Yeah, basically there's two siblings that are like in their late 20s, early 30s that have a much younger brother who's like 13, and he does the Justin Bieber of like getting famous on YouTube for a song and gets propelled into stardom.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, just goes viral, gets like signing all these deals and stuff, but the other two siblings are also performers. Like the oldest, she's like danced for a long time, went to like an academy of dance. And then the other, the middle child, he wants to be an actor. And like, you know, he's in New York City trying to be an actor. Of course, he's landing like nothing. So watching their younger brother basically accidentally get super famous is an interesting experience for both of them, because they're both kind of a mess.
Yeah, it written as a comedy, that sounds very funny. I think it could also feel very sad. But
yeah, and at times it does. There are definitely some like themes in the show that are kind of sad. Like the father of this family had like passed away, and like they kind of like keep lying to the youngest about what happened because like he didn't know anyway. So it's like there are definitely some like darker themes, but it's so funny. It's definitely, it's not, I don't really like cringy stuff where it's like you're watching this and it's so cringy, it's funny. I don't really like that stuff. And there are a few moments like this, but it's mainly just kind of like offbeat or like, I don't know. I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah. That sounds good. I might need to give that a shot. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. This is I like this question a lot, and I'm interested to hear your answers. What's something that you would consider a luxurious necessity? So for a lot of people, I think the answer would be like coffee, or some kind of caffeinated beverage where it's integrated into your routine, but it's not necessarily something you really need per se. It's just something that's really nice that you've come to look forward to each day.
Really comfortable shoes.
Okay.
Like Birkenstocks obviously are super comfortable. Chacos, anything with like support, because I never really thought about it. I mean, when we were at camp, like we were standing a lot, but like not so much that I was like, man, I really need to think about what shoes I'm wearing. But since like being in the hospital and literally being on my feet for like hours and hours or standing for surgery for hours, I came to understand how important it is to have shoes that really fit you, like they are actually like your size and made for your type of foot, whether it's like high arches, no arch, like, whatever it is. So that is like my, I guess like necessary luxury. Like you don't want to go to the hospital with shitty shoes on. Like you're just going to have a really bad day. And then the next day is going to be even worse because your feet hurt from the day before.
Yeah. Even getting in the right pair of shoes the next day, you're going to be dealing with the aftermath. Yeah, that I like that answer, and I've kind of seen that in maybe people that I've known that have gone into medical fields. They all seem to have a lot of the same shoes because they're catered towards standing for a good bit, and they've got tons of support. So like a Hoka's and stuff like that, like with the thicker sole and all that. Good answer. All right. I started with this question in episode 2, and I've liked the answers I've gotten so far. Do you have any bits that you're doing currently?
Me and my boyfriend have a bit that like, so I have a black cat named Salem and he has a black cat named Kirby, but they have very different personalities. And we have a bit that like Kirby is this like anarcho-fascist who's trying to like take over the world, but like she kind of doesn't care what happens. She just wants to like mess everything up. And because she is very chaotic. She's extremely chaotic. And like she'll keep you up all night because she just like wants to she doesn't want to play. She just wants to disturb your sleep. So we have this bit that like she is like not like a government agent, but like an anti-government agent, like I guess like Antifa type of thing, and like just wants to undermine literally any type of order. And so that's like our current bit.
Nice.
Like like the Canadian wildfires that like are sending a bunch of smoke into New York City. We're like, Kirby did that.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for the application. I was wondering how that would play out. Nice. I like that. That's fun. It's the one that I started doing this past week was if Tabby's like rounding the corner and maybe it's like a hair flip or something that's maybe an attractive type movement or like a smile or a wink or something, then I'll do like the big eyes like Looney Tunes, like ooga. It's very funny to me. I don't know how funny it is to her, but most of the jokes that I make are for myself, and that's one that I don't feel like I'll put away for a while. Nice. Let's see. All right. Given the opportunity to replace the national anthem with any song on your playlist, what would that be? And tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, before I say this is so funny. I just watched that Bama Rush documentary, and one of the girls they interviewed was like currently in a sorority, and for like they interview her for a really long time, and the whole time there is a flag, an American flag behind her, but with Nicki Minaj on it, like saluting. Like you've probably seen this picture, but
I've seen this picture in the flag before.
But it's literally on a flag behind her, like the whole time they're interviewing her. And I just thought that was so good. I like, she's like trying to talk about like really serious topics like racism in sororities and stuff. And Nicki Minaj is like really distracting me.
Oh my gosh.
But so I kept thinking of like, what if you were at a baseball game and they're like, please stand for the national anthem, and it's like, oh man, what like Oh gosh, what's that one song of hers? It's like one of the first ones that came out. It's like, this one's for the boys with the boomer
Yeah,
system. It's the
super
first thing
bass.
you hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so in episode 2, when I first employed this question, um, Jasmine, she gave me like 4 answers, and I think super bass might have been one of them. And honestly, I think the first time that I thought about this question was something to do with even that image of Nicki Minaj like on the on the flag, or some tweet that was like alluding to the fact that you please rise for the national anthem, and the beginning of the song just like you're describing. So so funny. It's just such a ridiculous premise, and it's hilarious. Um, Nice, awesome. Thank you for that. And last question. It's not last question, but last question for the intro. Um, how do we know each other? Can you connect the dots on that?
Yeah, I don't think we were campers together. Or if
No,
we
I
were,
don't think so.
yeah, I would say, or if we were too young to remember. But we both attended and worked at a summer camp called Camp Arrowwood, which is in Eastern Tennessee. And we, like us two, along with a like larger group, all started working there when we were 15 years old. You can only be a camper until you're 14. So after that, if you want to keep coming back to camp, you have to work and like volunteer. But we were known then as CITs, which is like counselors in training. But then they changed it to LITs, which in my mind is Long Island Iced Tea.
Sure.
So that was like a whatever. But I not at the time I wasn't thinking that, but now when I say it, but which is leaders in training. They were trying to change it up a little bit, and I think did they change the name again?
I'm unsure. I think that it might just be LITs still.
Okay. Well, basically you were like junior counselors so you didn't have direct responsibility of children, but it was kind of our job to keep the camp running. So like who's cleaning dishes, who's serving food, who's setting up for evening games, who's setting up the classes, and who's taking down, and all that kind of stuff. So it was like the labor that you need to make the camp run. So that's how we met, and that we were 15 years old. So it's been over 10 years ago. And we didn't, I don't think we knew each other before we actually started. And we started like around this time, probably. There's always a week where the staff is there, or like a few days where the staff is there before camp starts, and we, get to know each other, get some training, stuff like that. And that was probably the first time we met. And that was probably 2012?
Yeah, that sounds right. Because, oh man, if I'm 26 now and it's 2023. Ooh, yikes! Yeah, no, that sounds right to me. Because
yeah,
so would have started kind of going into freshman year or right after, of high school, that is. But
yeah, probably. I think we were all post freshman year of high school, except for Hannah Kate.
Yeah, that sounds right. Well, yeah, shout out to Camp Arrowwood. I'm pretty sure that they are starting in the first session of the summer today. So best of luck to and prayers out to that team. It can be a lot, and it's a really rewarding time as well. It's big part of who I am. So yeah, love that, and love getting to know you, Blair, and like everybody else that came in kind of around the same time as us, and got to work with some really awesome people there.
Yeah, I kind of don't really think about it as much now because, I haven't worked there since 2017. So, you kind of forget because it's so insular. Like you kind of like when you're not there, you kind of forget about it sometimes because it's just like so location dependent. A lot of this stuff is, but even like, so I'm just now meeting like the people I'm going to be working with for residency, like the people who are also first years, like interns and stuff like that. And I like had this moment where I realized that like I'm very comfortable like not wearing makeup, and like especially like in public and stuff. Like I never wear makeup to work. It's just I'll wear my glasses and makeup. I have no makeup. I'm like I just don't care. Like I don't have eyebrows. I don't have eyelashes. I'm not trying to hide that from anybody. So, but it was so funny because the girl I was talking to was like, well, I've got like a, you know, a 5-minute routine or whatever. And I was thinking, I was like, why am I so comfortable with that? Because when I was in high school, I did wear makeup every day. But I thought about it and I was like, at camp, nobody wore makeup. And we did that for like 6 weeks out of the year. And it was, you know, very intense work sometimes and long days and early mornings. And, you know, some people did wear makeup and that's fine. But like the majority of girls didn't. And, you know, it's a co-ed camp. So like, you know, you're around guys and everything, and like you just don't care anymore. Everybody looks crap all the time. You're tired, you're sweaty, your clothes are probably dirty to an extent.
Yeah, for the purposes of like why you're there, you're just like that's not a priority for me at this time.
Absolutely.
All this is going to do is make my skincare much harder, and
or just like I don't want to take the time. Like I just don't care enough to like, because and that's how I feel at work. I'm like, I'm not here to, you know, find a husband or anything. Like I'm here to work. So like, why do I care about what I look like? So it's like, there's stuff like that, or people will ask me like, you know, how are you so comfortable speaking in front of people? And like my college, like, I mean, we went to similar colleges, but like, you know, there were a lot of presenting aspects of like most of my classes. You probably went through something similar, but honestly, like when I got to college, I was okay speaking in front of people. And I think it was because of camp. Like there were times where you had to like, you know, 100%. It doesn't matter who you were, you had to make announcements in front of the whole camp and like sometimes sing in front of the whole camp, like if you were leading worship. And like, so it kind of just like, and it's a very low stakes situation, right? Like, you know, it's summer camp. Like if you mess up or something, like who cares?
Yeah, it might feel really awful and embarrassing in that moment, but realistically, there's only 70-ish people who saw what went down.
Right, and like 50 of them are kids who don't know what's going on anyway. So, or they're thinking about something completely different. So it just, I think it, totally got me like used to like speaking in front of large groups of people or like being honest, because we had so many groups, like so many powwows or whatever, where we would just like speak with each other honestly. And, whether we were talking about like doing like some kind of Bible study or just talking about like how we feel or whatever, like it just got me very used to it, which I forget that people don't have. So I'm always like, what do you mean? Like you got homesick when you went to college? Like,
that totally resonates with me. And I don't know, my educational experience was a lot better at college, I think, because one, I had the practice of a lot of what you're talking about at camp, and presenting in front of people, and learning a little bit about my own personality and the way my humor presented to people and the way I related to them, and even like conflict resolution. But that practice that I got was really good. And then I also felt a little more free to go about school in the way that I just kind of resonated with me a little bit better. But yeah, it's very, very integral into just the way that I am, and the skills that I saw some people my age like not having. And that's not a condemnation on people that I went to school with. I'm sure there's a million other things that they were doing much better than me, but there was something that I could point to and say, yeah, I was much better at these things because of my time working at camp and seeing other people being good at them as well.
Oh yeah, and we both went to like small colleges where like, you know, you worked with people in class and like, you know, there were a lot of collaborative stuff. But like, I mean, if you went to like a big university or something and, you know, you really never get into a collaborative space or a space where you're really working on a team until you have your first job, like you're kind of at a disadvantage. Where we were doing that stuff when we were 15 because we had to, right? Like we were experiencing like office politics, like in real time being 15 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's something that's like, it definitely, you can tell who's never worked before, and not saying that like, you know, a legitimate job or whatever, but like worked on a team, or, you know, had to, like you said, resolve conflict within a professional setting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it was camp and we all knew each other really well, but at the end of the day, like you had to be professional, especially in front of the kids.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
there were right ways and wrong ways to do that. And I definitely did it wrong enough ways to know.
Yeah, 100%. There are a couple things that I can point to for myself and in learning experiences that I'm really glad that I had. Yeah, so absolutely. I was really bummed because I think before staff week was the 25th anniversary. So it was a bunch of alumni from all different years going, and we were going to be at the beach, so we couldn't go. But I was like trying to halfway like figure out like, well, I could just like pop up for that day and then like go back down and go to the beach. Then I remembered that I have kids, and I was like, no, that's a terrible idea. But I was really bummed to have missed it. But excited to have seen it for some others and the conversations that they got to have. Well, cool. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for outlining that. So what I want to move into next is a little bit more of your story, especially as it relates to, medicine and surgery and, you know, your experience. Point from like point A to maybe just the inception of like when you knew you wanted to pursue medicine to now, like how did that start? Like is there any one point that you could look to in your life and say, oh, that's when I was set on the path to pursue medicine or go to med school? Or was it maybe, you know, it's a bunch of other building blocks?
Well, I knew when I was in high school that I wanted to do something sciencey because I really, really liked science. I was good at it. Like took like 3 different chemistry courses when I was in high school. I just really liked it. And I mean, it was kind of fun to me, which is so nerdy to say, but, and when I got to college
for stoichiometry.
Well, and my senior thesis was on how to teach stoichiometry. So I'll teach you that. I'll tell you that right now.
Let's go.
But I knew that when I went to college, I was thinking about medical school, and because I was really thinking about getting my PhD in chemistry and teaching, because, you know, from my experiences with camp and like some other things that I did in high school, like I realized how much I love to teach and how much I love being around other people like all day. And so when I kind of learned more about like what research is really like, I was like, this is not for me. Like one of my best friends, her girlfriend works in cancer research, and she's one of the biggest introverts I've ever met. And she loves it because she doesn't have to talk to anybody all day. Like she sits at her bench and does research, or like it looks at data or whatever. Like she doesn't have to talk to anybody. But for me, that would be awful. Like, you know, doing some kind of like coding job where I don't talk to anybody would be terrible. So I knew that but I would want to go somewhere like Center or Maryville and teach, like go somewhere where teaching was the focus, not research. But I also knew that there's not a lot of financial opportunity in that sect. And also getting your PhD is in some sectors very whack. Like one of my professors, she went to LSU's chemistry program, which they have a very good program, but it took her 8 years to graduate with her PhD because her primary investigator, like basically her mentor, like wouldn't let her go. Like there's no like graduation criteria necessarily. Like you do your required courses and you do your writing and stuff, but like you're working on like a project or like in somebody's lab and you go when they say you can go. Like, okay, you've done enough research, like you can go.
So like there's not like a limit of like once you achieve this many hours or this many pages of research, like there's no unit of measurement to achieve. That's really strange.
Yeah. And not every program is like that.
Yeah.
But
Oof.
in like my brother's getting his PhD in music, and that's much more because I mean you do research, but it's much more like historical research, or you know, it's not like bench research that you have to like run experiments and that kind of stuff. So
less data driven, more
right. And it's so it's yeah, and like that really kind of once I learned that as well, that really solidified for me that I didn't want to go down that path because like being stuck in limbo like she was, I would not fare well with that. Even if I did want to teach. But then the more I learned about medicine and like, you know, the Harrells, I talked to them a lot about it. One of our fellow camp friends, both of his parents are physicians, and I got to know both of them a lot better when I was in college because I lived closer to them than I did my home. So I got to know them a lot better and got to know more about medicine through them because I didn't really grow up with any physicians other than like my pediatrician. Like none of my parents' friends, none of my friends' parents, you know, I didn't know any physicians outside of my pediatrician. So I didn't really know what the lifestyle was like or anything like that. So, but the more I learned and the more I was like, oh, you know, medicine is a teaching field. Like, you know, if you work at an academic center like UT, U of L, like whatever, you're going to have residents and medical students that you have to teach. And so that was very appealing to me. But also the idea of being on like kind of a finite track was probably the most appealing. And law school is kind of the same way where, you know, you're going to be in law school for 3 years and then you're done. So obviously residency is a little bit different, but you still like, you know, how many years you're going to be in whatever you go into. So I would pretty much decided by the end of my freshman year that I was going to go to medical school or at least try to go. I like had scheduled all my classes so that I was getting all my pre-med classes and in addition to my major and stuff like that. So I was pretty sure. But the thing is like, you can't be halfway in. Like you're either in or you're out. Like one of my friends was a few years ago was kind of asking me like, you know, he was thinking about going to medical school and I was already in medical school. And he was like, no, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, here's why I would want to go, but here's why I don't want to go. And I looked at him and I was like, you either want to go or you don't. Like, this is a very lengthy, expensive process and you can't do it halfway. Like, you're either in or you're out. For better or for worse, make a decision and stick with it. So,
yeah. And it feels very much like something that you would want to feel like you have bailed on. And so one of the reasons for me starting this podcast was medical school in general, or in really most every medical field specifically. I've always thought of that as kind of an intimidating experience because it's, you know, intense. It's a good amount of time. It's a huge like financial investment. And then at the end, you know, you have you're charged with this responsibility for, you know, really serious things in people's lives. And I was like, man, people my age, like that I know from high school and college, and they're like doing that. Like, so that, you know, obviously other things as well that I was kind of looking at, but a lot of the people that I was looking to and inspired by were specifically that thing about medical school was the length of time and just the intensity and everything. I was like, ooh, that's not for me, but good for you. That's a kind of thing. So I'm glad that you touched on that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said that, like, what do you have at the end of, your schooling, a lot of responsibility, which is absolutely true. But like, I think that's one of the reasons that I was attracted to medicine, because you're kind of like the boss, like as a physician, you're the de facto leader, of any situation, whether that's actually true or not, or whether that's the proper, like, if I'm an intern on my first week, am I really more knowledgeable or more experienced, and therefore should be leading a very experienced nurse? Like, probably not. But like, theoretically, that's the situation. So it's like, having the responsibility fall to me was like, I was totally fine with that. And I was like, I want to be charged with taking care of other people, because I knew also from camp that I wanted to lead a life of service. And so that was kind of my way of doing it, is like, if I have this responsibility, other people don't have to have it. And that's fine with me.
That's nice too. And that's if I can say it, having somebody who, like you, that I know would be equipped to, help and like serve in that way is really comforting, I think, as a patient, to know that, like, Blair's put in the work and the time, and she's also going to advocate for me, and so yeah, that's a thank you for what you're doing, and it's really proud of you and proud to know you as well. So let's see here. What so you, like, for maybe specific fields, because medicine is broad, and there are a lot of different specific alleyways that you can go to. What drew you into that? First of all, tell us a little bit about what it is, and then or if you've even gotten to that point. I'm so kind of ignorant to it all. So like, to tell us about that.
So where you kind of like pick your specialty is at the end of medical school. Everybody with either everybody with an MD gets basically the same education. You pass the same exams. These are like on national levels. Like everybody reaches these same requirements that are very general. And DO is the same way, but they have some like other things that we don't learn. But everybody that passes like the DO boards and stuff like that, everybody's getting like a very, like, you don't think of an MD or a DO as like a general degree, but like it's very general. Okay. Like, you learn a little about a lot. And so your fourth year, really between your third and fourth year, you need to decide where you're going to apply for residency. And chiefly, you need to know what specialty you want to go into. Even if the answer is no specialty and you want to do something really broad, like internal medicine or family medicine, that's fine too. It's still, considered a specialty. And you apply and you interview, and then you have to go through this system. If you've ever done Rush, it's very similar. Like where you make like your priority list, and then the programs make their priority list, and then algorithm matches them up, and it's called a match.
And they interview you, and you have the Nicki Minaj flag in the background.
Yes, that I think I would have got more interviews if I used that.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's very hard because nobody really gets to choose. Like, you don't get to choose what program you go to. Programs don't necessarily get to choose their classes. It's very hard. People keep telling me that the system that we had before was worse, but I don't know if I believe that.
It's having a hard time. Yeah.
Right. And so so you really need to do decide and apply by, I think this past year, it was like mid-September. So you don't graduate until May. So what are you going to do? And you still do clinicals. There's a lot of time off for interviews and stuff like that. But a lot of people, you have a lot more freedom in the classes and stuff that you do. So a lot of people will, do more classes and stuff in the stuff they want to specialize in. So I wanted to match OBGYN. So I, almost all my like in hospital, rotations were OBGYN specific. But what happened in March is that I didn't match. So I the algorithm did not give me a job. Like I didn't match up with, it's like oh my God, I could explain this, like the actual algorithm forever, but it's basically, there's more people than jobs. So sometimes you don't get a job.
Mm-hmm.
So then if you don't match, you have to, so it's Monday morning and at or by 10 a.m. whether you matched or not. You either get an email that says, congratulations, you matched at 10 a.m. or somebody calls you before 10 a.m. and says, sorry, you didn't match. And at that point, what starts is the SOAP process, like supplementary occupational application, something like that. And basically all these programs that don't have spots filled for one reason or another enter this portal, and then you enter the portal and apply for some of the open spaces, and you basically do the same thing, but instead of it being over like 8 months, you do it in like 4 days. So it's very much like the NFL draft. It's kind of like that, where people are just calling you, and then like you get offers. So like the offers come in rounds. So it's kind of like the draft. But anyway, long story short is, from the advice I got, if I wanted to try and match OBGYN next cycle, they were like, the best thing you could do is a surgical internship. So that's how I got here. I applied for a bunch of surgery internships. And so right now my contract's only 1 year. But so that's how I got to general surgery. Because like OBGYNs obviously are surgeons, even generalists do C-sections, hysterectomies, stuff like that. But you can also specialize. There are specialties within specialties. So there are surgical specialties within OBGYN and stuff like that. So pretty much every OBGYN needs to be well-versed in surgical stuff, basically. So that's why I chose to do surgery instead of like family medicine, for example, which you can also do. But this is what I was kind of told is the most attractive thing. Like if they're looking at a reapplicant, like one of the most attractive things you could have is also like they want to know if you can do it, which sucks. Like to say that like you need to prove to me that you can like make it through a year of surgery, like to be considered for my program. Like that sucks. But like, that's also kind of the sentiment is like, can you do it? Because if you can do this, you can probably do my job, or excuse me, like take my position. But if you can't, you probably can't. So that's the other thing, is you're kind of proving yourself. And this is kind of the hardest thing you could do, from your choices. Doing a surgery internship is probably one of the most demanding out of any specialty, any general specialty.
Sure. And so with that, then the goal there is to reapply, and you go through the match process a second time, like in the round when they do the rounds at the same time next year.
Yeah. So
okay.
Same. I'll do the same process. I think this year I'm going to dual apply, which means apply to more than one specialty. I'm going to apply OBGYN again, but also for some general surgery spots. And it's being a preliminary resident is kind of weird, because sometimes, a program will come to you in December, January and say, hey, I know you're applying for the match again, but if you want a spot here next year, and sometimes you can slide into a second year spot instead of having to repeat your intern year, which is really great. So like, if my program came to me in December, which the match happens in March, so I wouldn't know what the results would be. And they said, we have a second year spot for you if you want it in general surgery. That would be very, very hard to turn down.
Yeah.
So sometimes
because it's not what you originally set out to do, like field wise, but yeah, it's the experience, and I would assume maybe better, would it be better compensation, or like would that
Not really. It's
nah,
it's it's more really it's the sure thing versus the unsure thing, because the
okay,
match is kind of like a gamble. You don't know how it's going to turn out. Obviously, it didn't turn out well for me this year, and that could happen again. There's nothing to say that it's not going to happen again. So it would be hard to turn down a for sure position, especially as a second year when I don't have like I wouldn't have to restart basically. That would be really hard to turn down, but like that's pretty rare that happens. But it would be hard to turn down for sure. Even though surgery is not what I, like you said, not what I set out to do.
yeah, gotcha. And so with that, then are you still looped in with the internship or first year um, pool? So like, are you? Is there a secondary group that it's like the people in your circumstances who didn't match initially, like they've gone and they're doing so those kinds of things? Like, are there different pools in that way, or is it
No, you just
everybody's
like,
lumped together?
yeah, say like reapplicants and applicants all go through the same process, and like it'll be obvious if somebody's a reapplicant. And yeah, that's pretty much like, I will say there is a difference in that there is like a portal for residencies looking for people. Like usually they're in the middle of nowhere. Usually they're at a very small hospital. Maybe positions that people wouldn't love to take, and that's why they're open. But if you graduate from medical school, you can take any of those positions at any time. So it's possible that I could look at the portal and get a position for next year without having to go through the match. But those
Okay.
are it's better to go through the match because I've got better chances. And it would have to be like a very specific set of circumstances. But that exists too. It's just the whole thing is so complicated. It's so annoying.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot to go through. Like even the people who have gotten their optimal result talk about it in an unfavorable way of like, wow, that was really hard and a lot to go through. And one more reason that I that I found that this whole endeavor of pursuing medicine as a career and medical school, I was like, that's whatever in whatever capacity I felt I could pursue that. That's one more thing that would deter me from doing that. Is that seems so intimidating and scary and disheartening in a lot of cases for people. Um, yeah. What's in the future for you as a practitioner? What do you kind of envision in that way? We touched a little on it in kind of generally what you hope for, but what do you see yourself teaching in a more formal capacity as an instructor of some kind, or what other ways do you see yourself applying that's at your skills?
Well, so say that I do get to be an OBGYN and I do OBGYN residency next year. I would probably want to start in private practice, just generally because like you work fewer hours, you make more money, but you don't get to teach, and the opportunities for research are pretty much none. So if your focus is research, then you want to go to an academic center, but you're going to work longer hours and make less money. Now, eventually, I do want to work at an academic center or be in a city with an academic center so that I can get rotators. Like, maybe students can come do an elective with me, or I can do guest lectures or things like that. But I mean, I would like to be involved in like student affairs, like a medical student affairs. We have at University of Louisville, the person that's kind of over our whole third year, which is like our completely clinical year. The physician that like kind of is over that whole thing. He's a surgeon, and he I want to be him when I grow up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was like so supportive and so helpful. And like, I would love to be able to provide that for somebody else. And it's kind of tough because you have to, you know, have a certain amount of other duties, like kind of to get there, like to get that high up in medical, like student affairs, you kind of have to do other stuff first, which maybe isn't as fun. But yeah, I would love to have some kind of leadership role in a medical school where I'm working directly with students and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome and good to hear. Kind of in the same line as that is what impact have you seen yourself making? Just knowing you for as long as I have, I know that is that you will continue to make an impact on those around you. And I wonder what that looks like in your profession, be it with coworkers or you know, colleagues and contemporaries and stuff like that. So what have you seen? How have you seen yourself impacting others in your field?
As a medical student, it's hard because you're kind of like a weight on the team. You're kind of like just dragging everybody down because you need extra help and instruction to do something that everybody knew how to do 20 years ago. So it's hard not to feel like a burden. And you want to be helpful so bad, but you know that you really can't because you just don't know what you're doing. And to ask somebody to teach you is another burden. So it's tough because you want to impact things positively, but it's almost impossible for you to do as a medical student just because you just really don't know anything. And also you don't have a degree. So like if you try to do anything clinical, like whether it's, you know, I mean, you can write notes, but like anything that goes into like the real record or, you know, actual procedures and stuff, it's rare that medical students get to do that unless you're at like in like a rural program or something and there's no residents. But it's tough not to just like my impact is literally like dragging the team down because my presentation today was terrible and now we have to figure out like what's actually happening with the patient, because basically everything you do a resident also has to do, but you get to try it first, and then if you mess it up they can do it.
Okay.
They've already done it. So like a presentation, like if I'm telling the team about a patient, a resident has already written a note on this patient, already went and seen them and has a presentation ready. So if I mess up, they are ready to do it. It's basically like I get to try to do some of their work that they have to do anyway.
That's it. Okay. That's interesting to hear. I didn't think about that experience. So like, all right, go try it out. And then I'm going to grill you on all of the ways that you did it wrong. And in some cases publicly.
Oh yeah. It's tough. I mean, like you get used to it. Like as far as like, you know, if you're on a rotation and you don't have somebody who's super communicative with you or something, and you're like, hey, you know, can I ask for feedback or something? And sometimes you just get ripped apart. And the reason that so they weren't giving you feedback is because it's terrible and they didn't want to feel mean. So, but if you ask for it and they unload on you, I mean, that's kind of, it just is what it is.
Oh man, that is so tough and so hard, and also very funny.
Yeah, I did a presentation like on one of my very last rotations on like a subject that I didn't know a ton about, and there are a bunch of different sources saying different things. It was kind of this antiquated surgery method that we don't really use anymore. And I asked one of the fellows that was on my team, I was like, hey, do you have any feedback from this morning's presentation? And he was like, it sounded like you didn't know what you were talking about. And I was like, good. I'm glad that came through.
that was I'm having a visceral physical reaction to that. That seems
he wasn't being mean. Like he didn't say it in a mean way to hurt my feelings. He was just like, you didn't do that good of a job because it seems like you didn't really have a good grasp of the literature, which is true. I mean, like I've read probably 3 or 4 studies when there's hundreds of studies on, this
Yeah.
thing that I don't have to read because it's not my job yet. And so, yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm way less informed
Ooh.
than this fellow who's specializing in this, but
Right.
yeah, so that was tough.
Oh man, I love that. Oh, well, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's maybe different from what I was expecting. How I was expecting you to answer, but kind of I think more clearly paints the picture of what your experience was like too. So thank you for that. All right. Well, I think that is gonna make time for us. Blair, thank you so much for for your time, sharing your experiences. Always good to talk to you as well. I do have, if you'll tilt your head this way, I have something to to share with you up on
Oh
on the
yeah.
screen. So for those that are listening, I did go to Blair's prom, but what, junior year?
Yeah.
Of high school. So we're color coordinating in some very blue outfits, and we look pretty awesome, I will
Well, what
say.
Roland isn't telling you is that he lived 2 hours away from me and came to Huntsville to be my date because I didn't have one. So, yeah. So Roland drove 2 hours and stayed at my house and everything to go to prom with me my junior year of high school, or our junior year.
Yeah, it's a good time. Good time. Well, all right. Blair, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for everybody that's listening, made it this far. Continue to share the podcast, send it to your grandma, and post it on your stories when you're listening. I'm going to continue with the coffee trend and offer. If you post a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your Instagram stories and tag the podcast, that will enter you into a chance for me to buy your coffee for that week. So we've got one winner so far in Destiny. So shout out to Destiny for winning that. I still need to get your Venmo from you so that I can get your coffee to you. But make sure that we get on that. All right. Well, I appreciate it, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.